Now what I'll do is just go for it. Normally what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of chirps and try to just establish my darks. So now that the drawing is already in place, kind of wash some color in. We'll get into this once we get into the kind of layering paint and some of the old masters techniques in week 4. Here we have value kind of established for my darkest darks, or my shadow value. And now I can just kind of play this almost like a scale. For anyone who plays music, it's really just going up and down the scales now. So sometimes I'll just come right out of, this is called a terminator. I'll come out of the terminator and then just start to slowly ride the form. We used to call it getting on the form. So I have my first band of value. Then go back and, do another strip from the terminator. My form's not always perfect. So just go back, take your time. Usually when I have my first strip of paint done, I can then really get a better sense of the painting. Kind of see the form now. I've got my light and my shadow worked out. Really, the concept that I'm trying to keep in mind while I'm doing this is that every piece of form that I put down is going to be darker or lighter than the next one. But it all orients to the light source. So nothing is random at this stage. I'm really kind of on the form trying to sculpt it. Bit of a jump there. This is what's called the crevice shadow. See, the form starts to turn up, and sometimes getting that first roll down is nice because it starts to show the roll from the shadow up into the light, so you get this full form all the way down, all the way up and through. Kind of like a sneak peek into the painting. Almost like peeling back a finished layer or something. Just snap right out of the shadow. It's called halftone. Right here. It's really just dark light. It's the darkest part of the light. Make sure to take a step back, see how it looks. observe the soft versus the hard edges, you know, a Terminator. This is going to be nice and soft. Try not to do a ton of blending either. You want to really see if you can hit the mark in the first shot. Extremely difficult to do. I get it as close as I can. It's inevitable that you're going to have to go back and just shift some of the hues a little bit more. Really feel like you're on that surface carving it. There we go. Starting to look good. Or getting where it needs to be. Consider the light most facing plane. It's a different geometry of the light to the object than it is to where the highlight is. Highlight's just a different idea. The highlight sits on the surface. It's really a reflection of the light. So I usually put it on last. You can actually put it on sometimes first or last. If you put it on first, it helps you to make sure that your light most facing plane is actually just slightly darker. So it actually would make it so this is the light most facing plane. This would be just a touch lighter than that. So it's, you know, if I had like a white sphere, the highlight is going to be whiter usually than the sphere. It's going to be reflecting off depending on what the surface of the sphere is, reflecting the highlight. But, you know, you always want to observe and then try to capture what you see, not fall into patterns of just putting stuff because you feel like it should. Like every highlight is different because it describes the surface that it's sitting on. Then what we can do is, you know, if you feel daring You don't have to do this. You can leave shadows the way that they are, but reflected light is really a reflection of the colors in the environment. So I can see that there's a little bit of warmth, but it has to be a darker value. So I can see that there's just, I'm gonna get it right. Bit of just warmth coming up through this, reflecting the table color up into the sphere. Again, this is just kind of going a step ahead, but just kind of livens up the painting just a touch. Go. Now what you can do is just put in a bit of a cast shadow. Cast shadow I can see is darker than the form shadow, which is really, this is the form shadow, but lighter than the crevice shadow. I'm thinking always of like, what's the hierarchy of the value pattern I see in front of me. So here we go. Just sometimes I'll grab a bit of terps, just get a little of that in. Terps just make it so that it flows a touch more. You don't want to put too much terps or mineral spirits in your paint. But there we go, nice and dark. Then what I'll do is just come back at the end, just make sure that that cast shadow touch darker, closer to the form. That the crevice shadow is nice and dark. And then what we could do is just grab a little, go back and forth till you nail it. If you didn't nail it the first time, every piece you add changes your perception of how you're seeing what you see in front of you. So I like to think that every piece is kind of like a step closer to the truth. Every time you kind of nail an area, it helps solidify parts of the other, the whole painting. It kind of brings it up a rung. So anyway, that's the sphere. It's a gray sphere, and it's what I'm hoping everyone can do this week.